Good afternoon, Odysseyware students. This is going to be your first video in your geometry course. I'm going to be making these videos for each lesson to kind of help you walk through the lesson and walk through the assignment. This is going to be for the first lesson for Unit 1, Introduction to Geometry, Ordered Pairs, Points in a Plane. So the lesson starts out kind of comparing ordered pairs to places on a map, okay? And kind of noting that just like we have locations on a map, ordered pairs help us find locations on a graph, okay? The objectives for this lesson are to plot points in a coordinate plane and to find the coordinates for a point shown on a coordinate plane. So the first question kind of just wants you to find what is the closest city to Chicago. This is something that you can do without any math knowledge. We can very easily see that Gary is the closest city to Chicago. So you would select Gary, okay? As it kind of goes more in depth into the points in a plane, it kind of reviews for you with an explanation and a video, which I would like you to watch, kind of what ordered pairs are and what they mean on a graph. This is going to be a review for you all from Algebra 1, okay? Before we kind of look into the questions, let's just take a moment and review ordered pairs, okay? So reminder that an ordered pair is going to be a set of two numbers within a set of parentheses. The first number always represents the x, and the second number represents the y. What that means is the first number represents where a point is along the x-axis, which is the horizontal axis, and the y value represents where it is along the vertical axis, which is your y-axis, okay? So I had a couple examples here to show you. So for example here, in point A, -2, 3, the -2 is your x value, the 3 is your y value. So to plot that point, what you'll do is you'll go to the origin, remember, which is the center of the graph, and you'll go in the direction based off of the number. So because our x value is -2, we're going to move in the negative direction along the x-axis, which means we move to the left 2. The y value is +3, which means we then move in the positive direction 3, which means we move up 3. And there we would land point A, -2, 3. Point B is 4, 1. So this time, because our x value is positive, we would move in the positive direction 4. So that's going to be right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the y value is 1. So we're going to move up 1. There would be point B. Point C is 1, 0. So remember, 0 means that you will not have any movement, okay? So for point B, we still have x value of 1, so you're still going to go to the right 1, but then you're not going to move up or down because the y value was 0. The opposite of true is if the x value is 0. That means we will not move left or right because it means no movement on the x, but we will move in the y direction. So the y direction is -6, which means we will move down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is where our point D will be. So now that we've gotten a chance to review that, let's look back at the questions that they're asking you. So for the first several questions, what they're saying is click an item in the list or group of pictures at the bottom and holding the button down, drag it into the correct position in the answer box. Release your mouse when the item is in place. If you change your mind, drag the item to the trash can. Click the trash can to clear your answers. So they give us a set of ordered pairs. Now, my ordered pairs may not be the same as yours because my Odysseyware is going to have different numbers. But I'm going to use the ones that I have to kind of show you what it's going to look like. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to this little dot down here and you're going to click it and hold down your mouse. Once you move it, you can see that it moves along with me and you're going to be placing it on the graph. Okay, so we can see that our first point is 1, 1. Remember, that means x is 1 and y is 1. So once I click and drag my point, I'm going to be going from the origin over 1 and up 1, and I would place it right here. Okay, now my particular Odysseyware does not allow me to leave it there because it doesn't allow me to actually answer the questions because I'm the teacher, but I can show you what the answers for this first one will look like. So remember, A is 1, 1. You can see that in the graph, it went over 1 and up 1. B was negative 3, 0. So it went to the left 3, but didn't move up or down. C was negative 4, negative 1. So it went left 4 and down 1. And D was 3, negative 2. It went over 3 and down 2. Okay? So for the first several questions, you're going to just be doing that, dragging and dropping your points in the correct location based off of the numbers they give you, remembering that the first number is for X and the X-axis is along the horizontal, and the second number is for Y and the Y-axis is along the vertical. Okay? So that's what your first several questions are going to look like. Okay, the next thing they want you to be able to do is identify the points in a coordinate plane. So that means look at something that has already been graphed and identify what it is. Okay, so you can see here we have several points that are already graphed, and you need to identify what they are. Okay, now what you're basically going to be doing is you're going to be looking at where do they line up with the x-axis and where do they line up with the y-axis. So for example, you can see point number C here. I can see that it lines up with 1, 2, 3, 4 along the x-axis and then goes down 1, 2. So that point would be positive 4 for x, negative 2 for y. So let's see if we can do a few of these together so that you guys can kind of get comfortable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first look at the numbers and then I'm just going to follow that movement and see what letter it is. So the first one is positive 4, positive 2. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the right 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and up to 1, 2. It looks like I hit point G. So in my box for G, I'm going to put 4, 2. Next one is negative 4, negative 2. So that means this time I'm going to be moving to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 1, 2. So that means that's going to be A. So in my A, that's going to be negative 4, negative 2. Now, one thing I want to check while I'm doing this is I'm putting the points in, but I wonder if they want me to just put the numbers. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring the answers up and see how they did it. And it looks like they also wanted us to put the points. So the way we've been doing it is just fine. Okay, let's look at the next one, negative 5 and 0. So that means we're going to move to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to move not up or down. So F is going to be our negative 5, 0. So in the F space, I'm going to go ahead and write negative 5, 0. Okay, so that's how you'll work through those questions. Now, the next questions kind of discuss more specifically looking at seeing if we can figure out the vertices of shapes. So the first one says the three of the vertices of a square are the points whose coordinates are 2, 3, 2, 6, and 5, 3. What are the coordinates of the fourth vertex? Now, first you need to know what the word vertices or vertex means. That basically means the corners. So they're saying the corners are of a square are at 2, 3, 2, 6, and 5, 3. So let's kind of come over to and see if we can draw ourselves a picture. So the first corner of the square was at 2, 3. That means we're going to go over 2 and up 3. Okay, so there's going to be my first point of the square. The next one is at 2, 6, which I didn't give myself enough room, so I'm just going to add a couple more, 4, 5, 6. Okay, it's going to be at 2 and 6. And the next one is at 5, 3. So it's going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll make one more, 5, and up 3. Okay, so you can kind of see where that fourth one should be. We know it should be still along this line. So that first point is still going to be at 5, right? Because we want it to stay along this line. But we don't want it to go 5 up 3. We want it to line up with this point, so it should go up 6, right? Because this point went up 6. So it should go over 5 and up 6. So our point is going to be 5, 6. And you can see that that's an option as one of your answers. Okay, let's look at the next one. The next one is very similar. It says 3 of the vertices, remember that means corners, of a rectangle have coordinates -1, -1, 6, -1, and -1, 2. What's the coordinate of the 4th vertex? They want us to find the corner, okay? So again, we're gonna put our points on there and we're gonna see if we can find where that last point should be. So the first one is at -1, -1. That means left 1 and down 1. So there's our first corner. Next one is at 6, -1. So that means I'm gonna go over 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I need one more. 6 and down 1. Okay, so I've got those 2. And then -1, 2. So that means over 1 and up 2. So if you kind of take a look, you can see where my rectangle should be forming, right? My 4th corner should be over here, which means that it should be in line with this point here. So that means I want it to go over 6, just like that one went over 6. So I know that my first number is going to be 6 because I want it to be in line with this. And then I want it to line up this way as well. Remember, this point went up 2. So my last vertices for that is going to be 6, 2. And that is going to line up right there. Okay? And you can see that 6, 2 is an option on my Odyssey ware as well. Okay? The last one is a little bit trickier because it's talking about a trapezoid. So for those of you that don't know what the shape of a trapezoid looks like, a trapezoid is going to have 2 parallel sides, but one is going to be longer than the other, and then it comes kind of to an angle like that. So it's different than a rectangle, right? A rectangle is just very straight on all sides. A trapezoid is going to have these angled sides here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put in these vertices and see kind of what we can do. So the first one is at -3, 2. That means we're going to go 1, 2, 3 to the left and down 2. So there's my first corner. This is a 7. Sorry if it's hard to see. That's 7, 2. So that means I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it's actually supposed to be negative. Sorry about that. So over 7 and down 2. So here's my base, right? This is where I can see that this is going to be the base of the trapezoid. This -1, 4 is going to be over 1 and up 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be the top. So you can kind of see where this bottom part is going to supposed to be. We're going to try to create where the top part is. So in order to know where this should stop, I kind of want to know the distance between these 2 points, right? This point right here was at -3, and this point right here was at -1. So I'm kind of think about what is the distance between -3 and -1. It looks like the distance is 1, 2. So this side started 2 in from the end. So that means that this side is also going to have to start 2 in this way from the end. So if this is at 7, 1, 2 is going to be at 5, right? So I know my first kind of point is going to be at 5. And then of course I want it to line up here. So it looks like it's going to be right about here. So remember we went 5, and then of course it was up the same amount, which is 4. So this is going to be 5, 4. And that way you can see that we kind of get those angled sides. And I'm sorry, I know my drawing is really terrible, but I found that by finding that this went into, so this side should also go into, and then just making sure it was on the same line. And you can see that 5, 4 is an option for me here in Odyssey ware. Okay, last question wants to know kind of what quadrants things are in. So if you're not familiar with the quadrants, the graph has what we call 4 quadrants. They're just basically labeling the 4 sections of the graph. So this right here is quadrant 1. This is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. It always starts in the top right corner and then goes counterclockwise around. So what they want to know is, where does that point lie in quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4? So the point is 2, 3, or 2, -3, right? So that means we would go over 2 and then down 3. So my point would be here. So what quadrant do you notice that it's in? Very good, quadrant 4. So again, you would select quadrant 4 as your answer. Okay. The next one wants to know which of the following points lies in quadrant 3. -1, -5, -1, 5, or 1, -5. So let's write those 3 options down. We'll put them all on here and we'll see which one lies where. Okay, so let's try the first one. -1, -5. So -1, -5 is going to be over left and then down 5. It looks to me like that absolutely is in quadrant 3, just like they asked. But let's look at the other ones just to make sure. -1, 5 is going to go over left, but then it's going to go up 1. That is in quadrant 2, so that's a no-go. And then 1, -5 is going to be going over 1 and then down 5. That's going to be in quadrant 4. So it looks like that first point is the only one that was in quadrant 3, -1, -5. And so we would select that as our option. The last question is a multiple choice question, and it says, which point has the coordinates of 2, 0? So for this one, we just need to count where 2, 0 is and then just identify the letter. So if we start at the origin, 2 means go to the right 2, 1, 2. And then 0 means that we don't move. So it looks like this point J is the point that lies on 2, 0. So hopefully that was helpful as you're trying to complete your first geometry lesson. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any other questions or concerns. I'll be here to help you as you need.